Turns out there are still ways to make money. We are no macro.
Alright. Can I sit in here? Yeah, take one. The last time I was underneath the camera.
Yeah, you.
Like tomorrow I'm doing something like, oh.
What's your name?
Go on TV.
I'm having full floor.
Pretty good? So you guys short?
He's up there. Did you have a lot? I thought.
I know, that's okay. I haven't left for that thing. I haven't looked for the page that I want. I just want to do something happening Yes. Yes, I can. Yes. Yeah, that happens to be carried away.
All right, see you later.
By the way, I'm
Oh, okay. Hey, Art.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting Sanford State Commission for Monday, February 22nd to order. First item of business is our legislative prayer with Pastor Arthur Goncalves from the Restoration Church of Sanford.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to lead us in prayer tonight. Let us bow our heads. Sovereign, triune God, we are grateful for your faithfulness, goodness, kindness, and mercy tonight. We acknowledge that without your Son, Jesus, we can do nothing, but with him, everything's possible. Help us tonight, Lord, to fear your name, and in your name, seek the welfare of our county, our city, and our precious communities. Heavenly Father, in our hearts we plan our course, but we pray that you establish our steps. Help us to carefully consider the relevant information that has been gathered. May those sharing information give us pertinent points so we all clearly understand. Help us to be innovative as we brainstorm solutions that will be for the betterment and restoration of our communities. Help us, Lord, tonight to wisely evaluate our options, considering the pros and cons. Help us to be unified in making the best possible decisions, and help us, Lord, to effectively carry them out. May all that happens here bring you glory. Direct our thoughts, our words, decisions, and actions toward the right path, and help us to stay on track. Let your will be done as we plan and make decisions. For tonight we acknowledge that everything is from you, through you, and to you, for your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, we have a couple of special guests with us this evening to give us a few comments on what's going on in Tallahassee. Senator Jason Broder and Representative Scott Bacon. Are y'all one at a time? Are you tag teaming? Or okay, so Senator Broder, can you come on up, please? I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for having me. I apologize that I've got a little bit of allergies happening today that I'm thinking is their Tech D for. So hopefully this subsides it.
It's that time of year.
It is that time of year. Well, I appreciate all of you having me here tonight to give a little bit of a legislative update. For those that haven't had a chance to work with me before, my name is Jason Broder. I'm State Senator for District 9, which is all of Seminole County and the southern part of Volusia, including Orange City, Deltona, DeBerry, Osteen Enterprise, that southern section. Grew up in Seminole County, went to Jackson Heights and Oviedo. Been a Sanford resident for 17 years, I want to say. It was formerly in the House of Representatives, where I chaired Health and Human Services for 5 years. And so now I'm in the Florida Senate, where we are embarking on an interesting year. Not surprisingly, the same challenges you all are facing with COVID and some of the budget issues that are happening. That's mostly what we're looking at coming up in the upcoming session. As all of you know, Florida has a balanced budget amendment, and we have a 60-day session. And that 60-day session starts next Tuesday, so 1 week from tomorrow. And we should wrap up right at the 1st of May, all things being good. And so during that time, we will pass somewhere between a $90 and $94 billion budget that funds all of our priorities. Most of the spending in the state of Florida is on education and healthcare, and then the rest of that money goes to justice and environment and transportation and government operations and those kinds of things. When we first started looking at this session, we estimated, or the economists estimated, that we would have about a $4 billion budget hole on about a $92 billion budget base. As those estimates have been refreshed, we actually have a smaller hole than we thought. Our economy is recovering faster than most, and so we think we probably only have $1.5 billion to $2 billion gap now going into this budget season. As you know, the state of Florida runs a fiscal year of July to June. So this budget that we're passing will be from July 1st, 2021, all the way through June 30th, 2022. And we only have to make up $1.5 billion to $2 billion for right now. That for us is not actually bad because Florida legislators are used to having hurricanes. And so we're treating COVID almost like a medical hurricane, and that there are some years when we just spend a little bit more money on natural disasters or other unintended things that come up than other events. We also have some assistance from the federal government coming down. There are different stimulus packages that are being worked right now that will help bridge some of that gap. And so for Florida residents who rely on state assistance, there may not be that big a hiccup that we had initially planned was coming. That said, we still have to be vigilant around projects. I have a long history of working with the city of Sanford for water projects in particular, but a lot of other things that we would like to try and accomplish because Sanford's in a unique position. Historically, the city of Sanford was the southernmost point to navigate to Jacksonville when paddle boats shipped celery and citrus. And because of that, we are a place that is of regional interest, and still are. And that means that we are a place of regional interest for the state of Florida and their investment. Very frequently, folks come to the state of Florida to make a budget request for things that are really the purview of the city. Whether they want to redo their reclaimed water, or they want to buy a golf course, you name it. Cities want to do all sorts of stuff. But those projects have a hard time of making the case that it's of regional interest, that the state should get involved. That's really just the city trying to get some money out of the state. Sanford is uniquely positioned in that because of where it's located, because we have a navigable waterway right on our shores, because of its history, almost everything we do is of regional interest. And so it's my priority this year to continue to fight for some of the projects that we're talking about. And I've already sponsored all of the things that the city's brought forward in terms of water projects and whatnot. I'm also uniquely positioned in that this year I'm the chairman of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee for the state of Florida. So we're going to be working on aquifer storage and recovery for Lake Okeechobee. We're going to be working on the resiliency of the state, which has to do with sea level rise, and unique to Central Florida, in addition to all of our high magnitude springs, we're going to be working on septic to sewer conversions. This is something that's really big for Central Florida and really big for the state of Florida. We know we need to get a handle on the nutrients that are leaching into our natural waterways. And so we have a program. It's a pretty good program, it's just not funded very well. And so in a year when we know budgets are going to be tight, we're going to try to find new ways to make sure that we have that funded so that those that want to get off of septic and get onto a sewer line have some kind of incentive there that doesn't damage them as homeowners for the long term. And so we're looking at a lot of new and creative ways because I think one of the things over the last several years that the state of Florida has tried to do is make sure we retain that equity that we always have that brought people here, which is that we are a really great place from a national environment perspective, whether you're talking about the beaches, or whether you're talking about the inland waterways, the springs, the rivers, the lakes, and we want to retain that. And we know that there are things that are going on right now in terms of our septic tanks, in terms of our flow from the Kissimmee River down to Lake Okeechobee, that have a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus leaching in that makes for poor outcomes for our water bodies. And so we want to get a handle on all those. And so that's going to be a big priority and focus for this year. That said, I'll take any questions from the committee if you would like, but I think the takeaway from this session is we just need to pass a balanced budget and make sure we kind of get out of here by retaining the same services we have now without having to cut anything for anybody because of COVID.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I have some comments, but I'll wait till after Representative.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you all.
Mr. Broder. And kudos on this septic to sewer.
Thank you.
Representative Plankton.
And kudos to this lady here. It's awesome.
I know, that's wonderful. Well, Mayor, City Commissioners, Mr. Bonaparte, thank you for inviting me to come here to address you this evening and to tell a little bit about what we have planned this year in Tallahassee. I concur with Senator Broder that I don't think if you're tracking individual bills, don't hold your breath until they pass, because I think you'll see, I'm going to predict a record low number of policy bills passing this year. On the budget side, it's no secret that it's a thin budget year, but what Senator Broder said is that the estimates are coming a little bit better than we thought. I served through the Great Recession of 2009, 10, and 11. I was in the legislature at that time, and this is nothing like that. Not even in the neighborhood or the vicinity of what we went through in 2009, 10, or 11. We're talking about really modest cuts around. Now, I have this year, I was appointed by the Speaker to serve on Judiciary, Full Committee, Commerce Full Committee, Full Appropriations Committee, Regulatory Reform, and the Joint Legislative Budget Commission, which is the House and Senate. And for the first time, I've actually, I think I have the record in the House, I've actually had 7 chairmanships in my service, at least the people that are there now. And my 8th chairmanship is the first as an Appropriations Subcommittee chair. I chair the Justice Appropriations Subcommittee, and our budget is about $5.6 billion. It consists of the prison system, which is about half of it, the court system, which is about $500 million, and the Attorney General's office, $700 million, and a number of other things. There's a whole bunch of things that fall in that budget. So a lot of my time is spent talking to the numerous stakeholders in that budget and to help sort out, I was at the state attorney's, Bill Archer's office today, touring their facilities. I'm spending a lot of time doing that. One thing about Florida, both in 2009, 10, 11, and now, we are, as far as I can tell, among the most fiscally responsible states. Our state legislature has consistently, over the years, had told people no, even when there was money in the budget. And I gotta tell you, that's not easy to do, because everybody wants their project done. But consequently, when the once in 100 year pandemic hit, we found ourselves with $4 billion in reserve, which is about maybe 12% of general revenue. So looking like, if you compare it to a family with their savings, we had months and months of savings. If you look at some of these other states, take New York, for example, they have the same, actually less our population, and their budget is almost double. That means double the taxation, half the liberty, and that burden on their taxpayers. But a lot of these states had little reserves because, again, their legislatures, when times were good, just gave money away, and now that times are difficult, they don't have reserves, and now I know some of these states are looking for a bailout with the federal government. We don't need that here in Florida. We, to give an example, to 2009, 10, 11, as the world was falling apart, I know Illinois, on the last day of their legislative session, raised taxes, both personal and corporate, by about 50%, and then left. They still have a hangover from those decisions years ago. Florida, on the other hand, we made hard decisions. We didn't raise taxes, and we came roaring out of there up until the time of the pandemic, where unemployment was 2.8%. So I'm very proud of the work that we do in the legislature, and Senator, most important, the only bill we're required to pass is the budget, and I would not look for a whole lot more than that this year. We talked about the nutrient reduction program, and I want to commend Senator Broder about that. Started, I believe, when he was in the House, and now I've kind of carried that in the House last year and this year again, and I'm looking forward to working with you to keep that going as fully funded as possible. Some of the policies of the legislature are kind of front and center is HB 7 that we've already started hearing in the committee. I was on this week Justice Committee, Policy Committee, and that's to protect small businesses from excessive lawsuits due to COVID. So there's a bunch of reforms in there that if businesses act responsibly, they'll have a certain lawsuit shield. If they don't act responsibly, then they can still be liable. but a lot of us think that they need some type of protection there coming out of COVID. So a lot of these, like for example, restaurants are already having difficulty to start getting sued for things during COVID. So that would provide HB 1 is called Combating Public Disorder. The governor, the speaker, and Senate president announced it on the day of January 6th, I think that evening, with enhanced penalties if you're part of a riot, so to speak. Some of the penalties can be increased on that. So that's moving pretty quickly. One of the things an issue that seems to come up every year, the bill fails every year, and I would predict again, it's vacation rentals. I know that's probably a concern to you guys, but I probably wouldn't be that concerned in a year like this. But you just never know. The legislative process is unpredictable. Of course, then redistricting, we're going to start working towards that as soon as we get the census numbers later this year, and that's a once in 10 year. And I actually, me and one other House member were 10 years ago. I think I was on redistricting last time I was on congressional, so I'll be there again for it. A few of my personal bill priorities is this was actually drafted by our sheriff that strengthens laws where drug dealers, for example, if someone dies, makes it easier to charge them with a murder, restricts if there's drugs are sold within certain areas near drug homes and recovery homes, there's enhanced penalties, and that's a big priority of the Sheriff's Association. I'm carrying that bill. I'm with House Bill 953 with I'm a Republican with Rep. Chambliss, a Democrat, helps people returning from our incarceration to expedite licensing. This is a follow-on to a bill I did a couple years ago that requires the Department of Business and Professional Regulation to work with the prison system to allow them to get licensed in prison. I've always been involved in criminal justice reform in some way. And one of my biggest priorities is, you may have seen this in the news, there's a local attorney named Mary Lisa Haba. She was a former sex crimes prosecutor for state attorney's office. She left a few years ago, started her own firm representing human trafficking victims. And I'll shorten the story, but I saw it in the news about a month ago where there's a local young man, John Doe is his pseudonym, who at 13 thought he was chatting online with a 16-year-old girl, and inappropriate pictures were exchanged. And then the, quote, 16-year-old girl started extorting him for more and more, got another child involved. And it was 13. Finally, the trafficker wanted to meet with him. He had the sense to not do that. 3 years go by, and a video of a compilation of this shows up on Twitter. The kid was suicidal. Parents found out, and all the kids at school knew, and they notified Twitter to take this down. For 9 days, Twitter left child pornography online and refused to take it down. So until a friend of the family with Homeland Security called to demand, and they finally took it down. It had been viewed 167,000 times, retweeted 2,200 times, and brought very difficult times to this family that lives here locally. So my bill that I work with, and Senator Bradley and the Attorney General's office will provide a cause of action against social media platforms, and if they don't take pictures down in 24 hours upon written notice, is a $100,000 a day fine to be enforced by the Attorney General. So these are just a few of the initiatives that I'm working on. I look forward to working with you all. If there's anything that I can help you with, my cell phone number is 407-221-8452. And please call me, and I'll do the best I can. And I look at, in terms of being a representative, I look at, you have your own personal beliefs and your political philosophy, but also the other part is representing the community. Sanford's one of the communities that I'm honored to represent. So I've always felt with our school board or the cities that if you have ideas, that even if I kind of agree with them, because you're a city that are constituents and you have priorities here, I'll do my best to try to help and fulfill those things. So again, it's an honor, and thank you for inviting me to share tonight. God bless you.
Thank you, Representative Clayton.
Mr. Mayor, members of the church, the commission, first of all, to both Senator and Representative, thank you for taking the time. I know that the session is very busy, so for you to schedule your time this evening, we really appreciate it. I did want to say a couple of things. One, I did ask our staff if there are any issues or items they want to make sure we brought to your attention. The first is home rule, and as Mayor Woodruff said, home rule is home rule, and so we appreciate everything you do to maintain home rule. Secondly, as the Senator indicated, both he and the Representative are sponsoring on nutrient reduction request for additional funding, so we want to thank you for that. That's House Bill number 3831. Also, Senator Gordon is the chair of the Environmental and Natural Resource Committee, and we are considering a Central Florida Water Initiative legislation proposal. We are currently not in favor of it in this current proposal, so we look forward to having it modified so we could be in favor of it. Also, there is the Senate bills stripping home rules such as the home occupation and not being able to be regulated at the local level. So the home occupation bills, we would like to have that as home rule. And then secondly and thirdly, from the economic development perspective, the joint, the economic development incentive, the QTI, we asked that be reviewed again. That is where the state administers the incentive, the local support is 20% that we provided all money. But we feel that in the current environment with COVID-19, a lot of companies, particularly from the north, are looking for warmer places to locate, and Florida is an ideal place to locate. So if we can provide some additional incentives for them to decide that their new home is in Sanford, we'd like to do that. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, again, thank you for joining us this evening. Anything we can do to help you advance your things, let us know. We're glad to work with you. Great, then we'll come to the Business Commission. First is the minutes of February 8th work session regular meeting. There is a correction on the regular meeting minutes, page 8. Commissioner Mahaney was not at the meeting and somehow showed up on the vote for item 8E, so the correction would be to have her on that. So is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
A motion second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. That brings us to consent A through L, unless there is anything to remove.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And that brings us to public hearings. First reading of ordinance 4592. Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance is entitled an ordinance of the City of Sanford, Florida, annexing by voluntary petition certain real property, generally addressed as 3594 Sanford Avenue, located contiguous to the City of Sanford, together with associated right-of-way within the area of the annexed property in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Section 171.044 Florida statutes, redefining the boundaries of the City of Sanford to include said property, amending the boundaries of the city in accordance with the provisions of Section 166.031 Florida statutes, providing for findings, providing for conditions, directing the city clerk to record the ordinance with the clerk of the circuit court, with the chief administrative officer of Seminole County, with the Department of State, providing for a legal description and a map, providing for incorporation of that exhibit, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing severability, providing for non-codification, taking of administrative actions, providing for an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, the city staff have reviewed the request for annexation and found the request to meet the criteria set forth in the Florida statutes. It is therefore staff's recommendation City Commission approve the first reading of ordinance number 4592 to annex 0.13 acres bearing the address 3594 Sanford Avenue as legally described into the City of Sanford.
This is a public hearing. Anyone from the audience wish to speak to this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Bring the commission for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. That brings us to ordinance 4593. Mr. Cole.
Ordinance 4593 is entitled an ordinance of the City of Sanford, Florida, annexing by voluntary petition certain real property generally addressed as 1800 East 2nd Street, located contiguous to the city of Sanford, together with associated right-of-way within the area of the annexed property in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of section 171.044 Florida statutes, redefining the boundary of the city of Sanford to include said property, amending the boundaries of the city in accordance with the provisions of section 166.031 Florida statutes, providing for findings, providing for conditions, directing the city clerk to record the ordinance with the clerk of the circuit court, and the chief administrative officer of Seminole County, with the Department of State, providing for a legal description of the map, providing for incorporation of that exhibit, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for non-codification, taking of administrative actions, providing for an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, the city staff have reviewed the request for annexation and found the request to meet the criteria set forth by the Florida statute. It is therefore staff's recommendation the City Commission approve the first reading of ordinance number 4593 to annex 0.22 acres bearing the address of 1800 East 2nd Street as legally described into the city of Sanford.
This is a public hearing. Anyone from the audience wish to speak to this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, bring the commission for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, unanimous. That brings us to ordinance 4594, Mr. Colbert.
This ordinance is entitled an ordinance of the city of Sanford, Florida, relating to the amendment of a planned development by rezoning 69.7 acres in size and amending the specific uses and development standards within the Ethnos 360 PD, converting lots 60 foot in width to 40 foot in width, approving the PD master plan, providing for rezoning of real property located at 1701 Celery Avenue, which is located within the city limits, providing for findings and intent, development conditions, and the resolution of disputes by planning and zoning commission, providing for taking of implementing administrative actions, providing for adoption of the map and the PD master plan, by reference, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for non-codification, providing for an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, the city's Planning and Zoning Commission, by a vote of 3 to 2, with 2 members being absent, recommended approval of the amendment of Ethos 360 PD. It is the staff's recommendation, however, the City Commission denied the request to amend the Ethos 360 PD, as the PD amendment is not consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the city's comprehensive plan. If after the public hearing, the City Commission finds the request is consistent with the surrounding neighborhoods and the comprehensive plan goals, objectives, and policies, then there are certain stipulated conditions that I think should be included in the approval that is listed in your report.
This is a quasi-judicial matter, and as such requires disclosure of all ex parte communications, investigations, site visits, and expert opinions regarding this matter. I have met with the applicant, and I have met with staff. Anyone else?
I've met with the applicant and I've done a site visit.
And I met with the applicant as well as spoke with staff as well.
I've had no communication.
All right. Okay, did staff want to go? No? Or so with the applicant, this is public hearing with the applicant. Right?
Thank you very much, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Bill Burkett. I'm with Burkett Engineering on 5 East Robinson Street in Orlando. Is it okay if I take this off on too? Okay. Thanks, sir. Thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate your consideration of this request to amend an existing PD that is entitled for single family and multifamily and senior housing in its current approvals. We first approached the city with the approached your staff with the pre-application meeting back in June and discussed with them a potential buyer for this property that has a product that they would want to put a 38-foot wide lot with 5-foot side yard setbacks. In that discussion, we understood from staff that the commission had not approved anything less than 40-foot wide lots, and so we thought, okay, we will that's fine. We'll request a 40-foot wide lot change in the PD. So we move forward with that, and at staff's request, we move forward with the CAP meeting, which was in August, and discussed with the neighbors that communicated through this virtual CAP meeting the intent of the 40-foot lot subdivision, and had no negative comments from them. They were very receptive to what was being proposed. They understand that this property can be developed currently as either up to 296 multifamily units, up to 118 single-family units, or up to 330 senior housing units. And so with that understanding, they did not have the neighbors did not have any concerns at that time. So we proceeded with a submittal of a PD master plan in November. We've submitted a traffic impact analysis. We've submitted a school capacity determination. Those are both based upon the highest use, I guess the greatest impact to the infrastructure if it were 296 multifamily units. And again, the intent, the hope is that if the commission were to rule favorably and approve the requested PD amendment, that this would not be developed in that manner. The intent is that it would be developed as a single-family subdivision. So that's why we're here this evening to propose that. And again, I want to reiterate a couple of things. First of all, it's currently entitled for 296 multifamily units, 330 elderly housing units, or 118 single-family units. And there's a provision made in the PD that this commission approved in 2019 for less than 7.5 foot side yard setbacks. There's a provision made that if less than 7.5 foot side yard setbacks were to be approved, were to be applied, then roof gutters would be required, which would be the case with this, and AC units, mechanical equipment would be behind the house, not in the side yard. So that would be the intent here. We think, and we've worked with your staff for years and have great respect for your staff. We disagree with them from the standpoint that we believe this is an appropriate transitional use in this area. To the east of this project is Surrey Lakes. The lots that abut this property have 50-foot wide lots with 5-foot side yard setbacks. We're proposing 40-foot wide lots with 5-foot side yard setbacks. And the houses on the easterly side that would abut those 50-foot lots have an additional 35 feet in depth because there's a 35-foot drainage easement, and we've measured the 115-foot lot from that drainage easement. So those lots would actually be 150 foot deep, providing extra separation, if you will, from the closest single-family homes. To the west is an Ethnos 360 development that includes elderly housing, it includes duplexes. And so we think because of the multifamily use to the west, the 50-foot lots to the east, the 40-foot lot is a nice transition between the two. And so that's what we're requesting tonight. We appreciate your consideration of that. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Again, we've been through the school board, traffic study, we've talked to your staff, talked to some of you, but we'll be happy to answer any questions on that.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, I do call to your attention that staff did provide the revised agenda and material.
Any questions for the applicant? I'll start with a couple of questions. Okay, so you mentioned that to the west are the duplexes, and so that this would be a transition from that.
Yes.
Looking at the aerial, I'm counting about 52 units there.
I'm not sure. Dan, do you know how many units you have? Dan Kreider is the representative from Ethnos 360 down the property.
Yes, that would be correct. I mean, there would be 52
duplexes, so 104 units.
So 104 units on actually a larger parcel. And so 40-foot lots with 115 on a smaller parcel is a transition to single family?
Well, keep in mind, the existing Ethnos 360 has more than just the duplexes. They have the chapel, they have some other senior housing facilities. So, yes, it's a mixed use to our west. It is not a single family use.
And then in the CAP meeting, part of the report says that residents weren't concerned because there would not be a greater intensity.
Correct.
Okay. So with 60-foot lots, if you can get the same intensity, why aren't you going with the 60-foot lots?
The potential buyer, their research shows that the product, a 40-foot lot with a 28-foot wide home, is a product they've been very successful with. They think it'd be a good fit in this location. And so it meets the price point of what they believe would work best here.
So when you say potential buyer, Ethnos is no longer, this is not going to be Ethnos use.
That's correct.
They're selling it.
They're selling a little over 20 of their acres.
They're selling a little over 20 of it, and that includes the RV parking and
Does not. Let me clarify that. They will retain ownership of, I can't remember the exact number, plus minus 7 acres, where they'll build a 15,000 square foot shop, the approved RV parking, the lodge. They will retain ownership of the southwestern portion of the property. That's correct. Part of the request is, and I appreciate you bringing that, Commissioner, part of the request is a change in the setback from the proposed single family that we're talking about tonight. There's a 150-foot setback to the south property line, and that would still remain. With the original approval, or the approval in 2019, there were, I think I put it down, there were setbacks to the north, about 250 feet, and to the east about 300 feet. It was literally based upon the conceptual plan at the time. The owner is comfortable with reducing that to 100 feet from the single family, which would still be a nice buffer.
Okay, I spoke with Jordan as one of our staff members as well, and for him to give me an example of what the 40-foot lots would look like, and so I drove over to Palm Point. So just to help the commission visualize, Palm Point is off of Person. That is a very tight space.
Well, the better example would have been Wyndham Preserve, where there are 40-foot lots, and the homeowners are still complaining about standing water between the houses because it doesn't drain.
Now, he did explain that they are putting the ACs in the rear.
But that there also.
They did.
So to that point, a couple things with the layout that we would propose, should this get approved. There's a large, like about half the lots back up to a retention pond. The lots, like I say, to the east are extra deep, so they are, I guess, not typical lots in that sense. We understand, sir, from the discussion we have with you, the concern about the grading, which could be the drainage, it could be from grading, it could be from soil conditions. We're aware of that. The potential buyer is actually doing some extra geotechnical investigation this time to make sure that they understand what the soil conditions are, because they certainly don't want to be in a situation where they have drainage problems between lots. To that point, sir, if it would be beneficial to increase the side yard to 6 feet from 5 feet, get it 12 feet, give a little extra room for grading, we'd be willing to do that, make that a concession for your consideration.
Okay, explain that to me, like I don't know.
Certainly. So when you build a house, you have a required setback to the front, to the rear, and to each side. So when you have a 5-foot side yard setback, that means you could have homes as close as 10 feet apart, 5 feet from each home. is that gives you 10 feet to work any change in elevation, grading, transition in that 10 feet. And so what we're offering is we make that 12 feet. Just gives a little bit more room to work with, to make grade transition, to make sure we can do the best we can to make sure the water will move front or back depending on the grading pattern. We'll use standard Florida, FHA, Federal Housing Authority grading plan, grading patterns, design. Type A, type B, type C lots are standard FHA grading patterns that are pretty well of industry standard. We'll make sure those are met. Of course, your staff will review those and make sure we do that.
Any other questions?
I brought up at my discussion with the gentleman my concern about entry and exit to the area. It doesn't seem like that's what the concern is today, but for me that is with all of the new development that we have along Sanford.
We did talk with a traffic consultant about that, and she assured us that the traffic study that she prepared for the 296 multifamily units, that turn lanes were not warranted. However, I've also talked to the owner, and he's willing to put in a left-hand turn lane, that would help ease your concerns for traffic flow.
Question, and I may have misunderstood you, but one of the things I heard you say is that the owner was looking at the price point of the property, at least what they were going to sell the houses for, between the 40 and the 60 foot. Could you tell us any more on that?
My understanding, the 40-foot wide lot product they have would sell in the mid-200s. That means the price point of what that product is the price point of what they believe this market is looking for.
And the 60 foot?
We have not evaluated that with them because they're looking at this particular product.
I would imagine you're saying it would be more than 60 foot.
I would assume so.
Okay, I also, one of the requests is also to reduce the open space from 50% to 45%.
So when we have 115-foot deep lots with a building pad that would be 70-foot deep by 28-foot wide, we want to have double wide driveways, which add imperviousness. We want to have the ability to make a provision to have a patio in the back. And so in order to do that, we're assuming will be less open space on the lots in order to make these homes nice, give room for cars to be able to park, not be on the road, have room to park in the driveway, still have patio recreation space in the back. So that's the reason for that request.
Okay, and yet in your CAP report, it says the smaller lots allow more park and recreation space.
It does from the standpoint that we're required to provide 400 square feet of park and recreation space per lot. For this, I believe it's about 1.08 acres of park and open space that would be required. Now, we have not run an analysis of how many lots we would get if they were 60-foot lots. It would be a different layout than what we have come up with. What we've come up with, we think, is a nice flow through the property. But assuming, you kind of alluded to this, Commissioner Mahaney, that if we had less lots, if they're 6 foot wide, which is probably the case, we don't know what it would be, but we haven't evaluated that. But the point being, less lots would be less parking open space. So again, we think this is a good transition from the mixed use, multifamily use to the west, the single family 50-foot lots to the east. We think it's a better use as far as the owner is concerned, as to get as far as the value of the property he wants to be able to do this as single family as opposed to a multifamily product.
I'm looking at the aerial, and I would say the existing mixed-use area is actually the least dense development in the area. So, I have a real hard time with 40-foot lots and the experience we've had with 40-foot lots.
We recently rejected goodness gracious. Can't think of the word. An application for annexing for water based on it being a 40-foot lot subdivision. And then they came back and agreed to do 50-foot lots. And we weren't thrilled with that, but it was better than those.
And I have and continue to have big concerns about our 5-foot setbacks because we just haven't seemed to have good outcomes from that. We have ongoing drainage problems in several neighborhoods due to 5-foot setbacks. I have said before, and I will say it again, I'd almost rather see multifamily than houses lined up with 5-foot setbacks.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
I sure do. Where was it on here? Why the need to remove the fence from the retention pond?
Great question. We propose a pond in the middle of the property that outside of the pond and the maintenance berm would be part of the basically a walking track, part of the amenity area. And so aesthetically, we think it'd be more pleasing.
I don't disagree with that.
That's the middle pond? Or no?
Yes, sir.
Water pond.
Yes, sir, middle pond.
Explain to me what a flag lot driveway separation requirement is.
So, because we want to have a little bit more creative layout, as you've seen in the concept plan we provided for staff, it leads to lots in the cul-de-sac and some of the corners that are narrower, a minimum of 20-foot wide at the right-of-way. And so that puts driveways a little closer together before they get back to the house itself.
Also means there's not a lot of space for your friends to park when they come to visit.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture. I think we've got some of that over in Mr. Bonaparte, what's the name of the neighborhood right directly across the street from us, Mayfair Oaks? I know. Okay, so I got that. Okay.
On that trail area, because you're counting that trail area as part of the recreation space.
Yes, sir.
To the question to our staff, because I thought for a trail area to count towards recreation space, doesn't it have to be an average of 40 feet wide?
Amy King, Director of Planning. It's good to see you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, City Attorney. I just want to introduce Jordan Smith. He's worked very closely with the applicant. So Jordan, would you like to come up? So Jordan Smith is a senior planner, and actually in no need of introduction, I'm sure. So Jordan, would you like to answer the question?
Bus meet Jordan. Jordan meet bus.
Mr. Mayor, you are correct. It has to be 40 foot. And the trails are negotiated between the commission and the applicant. Make sure amenities that want to see.
Any other questions at this time for the applicant? Okay. Let me see if anyone else wants to speak, and then we'll have you back if you have any more comments. This public hearing, is there anyone else from the audience who would like to speak to this item? I shouldn't have him walk away. Did you have any other comments you wanted to make?
we're certainly sensitive to the concerns that have been discussed and are prepared and willing to do everything we can to meet your concerns to make sure this is an attractive, nice addition to the city of Sanford. And so we would like your support. If taking extra time to work through some of your concerns with staff would be desirable, we would be willing to continue to do that if it would be favorable from your standpoint to do that. We think this is the best option, and with all due respect that multifamily may be a better fit. The concern we typically hear in these types of meetings have to do with traffic and schools. And of the possible uses for this property, the least impact to infrastructure would be a single-family development such as this. And so that's why we think this is a good fit for the city. And we hear your concerns, and we're willing to work with you to find the best resolution for both sides, if that would be a benefit.
Wouldn't the least impactful be what we approved 2 years ago when you were before us?
The least impactful, well, what was...
Didn't we have a lengthy issue approving this from the beginning 2 years ago?
The discussion kind of caught us off guard 2 years ago because it was all about the RV parking. It was all about RV parking. We had requested an additional 30 RV parking spaces, and we agreed to only an additional 15 RV parking spaces and 150-foot setback from the south property line.
We were also specific on what kind of development we expected to see, weren't we?
Well, at that time, what was discussed, what was already on the PD allowed for all these uses. And so let me amend that. It allowed for single-family, multifamily uses.
Right.
We added the elderly housing as an additional entitlement.
Right.
And so in our discussion, your code calls for a maximum 6 units to the acre for single family, and we agreed to a maximum of 15 units to the acre for multifamily. But really wasn't much discussion on that. We were fine with that, y'all were fine with that, staff was fine with that. And so none of that's changing. 15 units maximum multifamily, 6 units maximum single family, those entitlements are still being proposed. We're not asking for a change in any of the density. So considering the possible uses, the greatest impact would be the multifamily. That would it'd be more kids to the schools, more trips on the roads, more water, more wastewater. So that's why we think this would be a better fit from that standpoint.
Well, I'm not in favor of 40-foot lots. If you think you can come back with something else, if you want to continue it, it's up to the commission.
I'm not in favor of the 40-foot lot or the 5-foot setback.
You're asking to increase this by 115, which would put it at 230 something, right?
No, sir. We're approved for 118 single-family homes,
right?
And we're asking for up to 118 single-family homes.
Well, and the approved for they're taking away all the 60-foot lots,
right?
But you're not going to get 118 60-foot lots on this. I mean, even I was able to calculate that the most you could do is 92 if you wanted to have roads. And I think staff thought it calculated 77. So there's no way you were going to get 115 60-foot lots.
And you're probably right. We haven't tried to lay out that way because, again, that would be a more efficient layout to do that, to get as much as we could. We haven't attempted to do that because that's not the product that the potential buyer wants to build.
And I haven't talked to a lot of people that really want the 40-foot lots. The people I've talked to mostly said that's what was being sold, not what they were looking for. And if they had the option, they would have taken a bigger lot. And I don't know of any 60-foot lots that are having trouble selling. So I think there's a market for that. So I don't know. I mean, we can continue it if you want to try to come back with a different plan.
So I think what I'm hearing, the concern, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I want to make sure I'm hearing what the commission's saying. I think what I'm hearing is the concern really is the lot width as much as it is the side yard setback. Is that a true statement?
No, I think it's the lot width too.
The lot width and the side yard setback.
Which they kind of go hand in hand.
Yes.
I'd rather see 60 foot with 7.5.
Even though we're right next to 50 foots and right across the street are 50 foots that are being constructed with 5 foot side yard setbacks.
And we have learned that 5 foot side yard setbacks do not work.
That was a different commission. Some degree of a different commission. And yes, you could come right back and say, well, Commissioner, you were there. I was. We've had enough problems now and know enough to know that was a mistake.
Well, we're happy to work on that with your staff, sir. Ma'am?
Okay. Then, motion to continue.
Move to continue.
2 weeks.
3. I think it's 3 till the next meeting, isn't it?
No,
March 12th?
no, it'll be the 8th and the 22nd again. just
8th,
like
okay.
this one.
No, it's the end of the month. We have next week. So it's 2 weeks enough?
2 weeks or 4 weeks? 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
If you may.
Okay. So that puts us on March 22nd?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion to continue to March 22nd. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay.
All right. So motion to continue for 4 weeks. A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, I think the applicant will see that the minutes will show that the commission is looking for 60-foot johns and 7.5 side yards.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to first reading of ordinance 4595. Mr. Colbert.
This ordinance is entitled an ordinance of the city of Sanford, Florida, relating to the amendment of a planned development PD by rezoning 19.57 acres in size to modify land use and developmental standards within the Gulf Park Commerce Center. Approving a PD master plan providing for rezoning of real property located at 3849 Church Street within the city limits of Sanford, providing for findings and intent, development conditions, resolutions of disputes by planning and zoning commission, providing for taking of implemented administrative actions, providing for adoption of a map and a PD master plan by reference, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for non-qualification, providing for effectiveness.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, the city staff finds that the amended North Park Plan Development and associated master plan are consistent with the City of Sanford's comprehensive plan. However, recommended to the Planning and Zoning Commission that the duration of the temporary use and associated improvements terminate after a 5-year period. During the public hearing, the applicant requested consideration of a 6-year time frame, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended the applicant's request for a 6-year time frame for temporary use and associated improvements be approved.
This is a judicial matter and as such requires disclosure of all ex parte communication. In this case, should say this is expert opinions regarding this matter. Anyone else?
Nope.
Okay. Public hearing, would the applicant like to speak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. I do want to comment before I relate to the application before you. It's interesting that we have a local Sanford citizen and taxpayer who's a state senator. If I recall, Mr. Colbert, one of the last or the last state senator from Sanford was your deceased law partner, Douglas Stemstrom. And at that point, I was running around as a 20-some-odd-year-old businessman downtown Sanford. So it is interesting. This is a somewhat complicated issue. Chris, could you show the aerial for Brand Yard Commerce Center.
Excuse me, and can you, we know who you are, but can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Sid Valine Jr., 670 Valine Road, Sanford.
Good to see you. It's been a long time.
It has been. I initially developed Ramyard Commerce Center, and that was Ramyard Commerce Center East. Chris, if you'll go to the next slide. That is Ramyard Commerce Center West. They actually connect on White Cedar Road and Church Street. And I have developed land only. And I was approached by a Mr. Dan Fox, originally from Ohio, who actually builds and leases buildings, industrial buildings. And Dan wanted to come to Sanford. I happen to have these lots, and he and I made a deal, and I'm real proud that I had something to do with D.L. Fox Properties coming to Sanford. The point is, Dan has actually built in Ramyard Commerce Center 113,970 square feet of buildings, and he owns them, leases them, and they're 100% leased. It is so successful. Chris, would you go to the slide across the street? Now, that's FedEx, which I'll get to in a few minutes. So Dan went across the street and has bought the 24 acres, which was initially developed by McDonald's out of Atlanta. They built 2 buildings. You have already approved the subdivision plan for D.L. Fox Properties across the street recently. Chris, that isn't. That's the original slide. It's the application overhead. In any event, in the interest of time, D.L. Fox Properties has already received your final subdivision approval for the additional industrial lots across the street. And as a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, we submitted the plan for this property across the street for us. There we go. That's the property. We submitted to city staff the plan for a 65,000 square foot building on this property. And that's being processed, and that building will be built immediately, and it is pre-leased. Now, in the meantime, in the middle of all this, FedEx, with the new internet purchases, has completely outgrown its facility, and the parking is inadequate. Now, FedEx is in the city of Sanford, so they're Sanford citizens. So they approached D.L. Fox Properties for additional parking, and that is what is before you tonight. They proposed to lease a portion of the 19 acres for 4 years and 2 one-year extensions, and that's where the 6 years comes from that your P&Z approved. Now, if FedEx can get this additional parking, number one, we ensure that they stay in Sanford and they can grow for a while. And they have indicated that with the additional parking, they can bring in additional trucks and they can internally handle about 30% more intake and delivery. So they can employ more people and we can be assured that they'll be here. Now, the reason I showed you what Dan has done across the street, he's not asking to lease a piece of property for a few years and just abandon it. The idea is to save FedEx, help them, and then once they're finished and figure out what they're going to do about expansion, at that point, the Fox Properties will build and lease additional square footage. One final comment to let you know how legitimate this request is. The company received from your staff last week the clearing and fill permit and has the final engineering St. John's permit and all approvals and is going under construction on this site in the new property. So we hope that you'll understand the issue and help FedEx, and that's the goal. Now we have our engineer here, Brian Potts, if you have any questions, and I'm open to questions.
Chris, can you put up the aerial that's in our packet, please? I just never quite got my variances too. Talking about the color.
The video?
What page? Yeah, that one. Okay, so the two buildings you were pointing at are top right. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And FedEx is sort of bottom left. Is that FedEx?
The existing FedEx is off the screen. Where they're proposing the parking is here.
Okay. So FedEx is further down the road.
Yeah, you can see the two sites on one of the aerial photos.
FedEx is on one road.
Mr. Baird, the travel time between the existing FedEx and this property is approximately 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to figure out which of these buildings was FedEx because
Yes.
I didn't think it was on there. So, okay, so FedEx is a little further off. So it's the latter part of that property is where so it's really the part that's right up against the residential, right? Correct?
Oh, no, residential is far removed from any of this property.
No, there's residential right there under the word site.
I mean, it's not contiguous.
That's the site.
That's the site.
And then right below that,
That's it.
okay. And then to the right of that, and then down to the left of that, where in the residential
Mr.
right
Mayor,
there?
that's residential, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, but there's the pond will be in between the road, the pond will be in between where the parking is and where the houses are. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, getting that right? Okay. All right. Yeah, the development's not finished in that one.
Your Google's old.
Yeah, Google needs to go around the earth again. All right. Any other questions for Mr.
design.
Right, this is a public hearing. Anyone else wish to speak to that?
Thank you very much.
All right, then we'll close the public hearing. Staff have any additional comments? Okay, then we'll bring it to the commission for discussion action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Commission is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. McGlynn. Good to see you again. Okay, that brings us to other items. A, final plat of Selby Oaks.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, submitted for the City Commission approval is the final plat for 28.5 acres of property for the Selby Oaks subdivision, a 105 lot single family subdivision at 1800 Celery Avenue. It is the staff's recommendation that the final plot is consistent with the land development regulations and complying with Chapter 177 of the Florida State Statute, subject to the plat meeting all legal and technical requirements that are determined by the city attorney and the city surveyor prior to being recorded, and it is the staff's recommendation, City Commission approval.
Okay, anyone wish to discuss this item? Okay, bring it to the commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. That brings us to preliminary subdivision plan for Mayfair Code.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, the staff, along with the city's planning and zoning commission, recommend City Commission approve the preliminary subdivision plan for Mayfair Cove, a proposed 12-lot, single-family residential development on 5.21 acres at the project address of 430 Lake Boulevard, based on the plan meeting the standards of SR1AA zoning and subject to following recommendation conditions.
Anyone wish to speak to this? Bring it to the commission for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
I just had a quick question now.
Okay, good.
Lot number one, I was just a little confused about that. What is that? It looks different from
I think lot number one includes a lot of wetlands, and the dotted line is the building area. Is that right?
Yeah, second or 8241 Beaver Street. It is. There's actually on that layout, I want to say that the total square footage of that is about 2/3 of an acre.
Mm-hmm.
But the buildable area is where it's about 10,000 square feet. Actually, we are changing that configuration just a little bit, well, maybe significantly, and I'm combining half of lot 2 with lot 1, and the other half is going to lot 3. So the density is going to go down, and the overall sizes are going to go up for just those 3 lots. I'm deleting lot 2 and making lots 1 and 3 bigger.
Okay.
So.
And we're able to approve it as presented because that's.
Did I overshare?
I just didn't want to get us in trouble. I just didn't understand how you're going to sell 11,000 square foot lots.
Honestly, they're going fast.
I shouldn't have said that out loud.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't understand how you got
40 foot lots on there. I'm sorry.
I don't understand why you got Lake Mary Boulevard on here.
The underlying plat shows that. It says Lake Mary Boulevard / Country Club. That's what the surveyor put on there. So that wasn't mine.
Can we have that removed the second reading?
I'll scribble it out.
I'm excited to see this. It's my district.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, you made me work to figure this one out.
Why is that?
Well, just, some of the interesting shapes
Yeah.
of some of the lots.
Yeah, but that gives it a lot of character.
Yeah, trapezoid. They're not just straight, narrow lots, 40 foot wide.
You had to do a lot of work to make it work.
They aren't in our
Exactly right.
neighborhood. They're not. I'm in Kaywood.
Yeah.
They're not. We've got a few.
Yeah, there's some geometries in there too.
Ones as well. So I think it gives it some character.
Like lot 6.
Yeah, it's got a
long.
That's your flag lot that goes back to the water. So it's got technically waterfront.
Oh, okay.
The twin flag lot, because I still didn't.
Okay,
So
so
think
you're
about a flagpole. You have the long, narrow portion of the pole and the flag of the meat of the lot.
okay. So that makes so much more sense now. So that's actually wet there, and part of the lot is underwater.
Yes, the pole of the flag lot is under the water.
All right, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any other questions? A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. That brings us to resolution 2937 and 2938.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, staff is requesting City Commission approve resolution number 2937, resolution number 2938, creating a City of Sanford Race, Equity, Equality, and Inclusion Advisory Committee. The committee will be comprised of 15 members appointed by the City Commission, City Manager, authorization to enter a contract with the National League of Cities, Race, and Leadership Program, and the Peace and Justice Initiative at Valencia College.
Okay, we talked about this at the work session. There was one thing brought up that I wasn't really discussed or resolved, and that was the number of people appointed by who. Do we want to further discuss that?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams, it looks like you have something to say. Sorry.
No, I don't.
Okay. So, what, do you all want to change the?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm okay with it as written because I like the idea of filling in the gaps based on who's already appointed. But I'll go either way.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission, the important is for each member of the Commission having an appointment, and then the remaining is just for that, to fill in the gaps, depending on the geographic, the diversity of all kinds that the Commission would want to have on this committee.
So the question is, do we want to pick two or pick one? Right? As far as commission.
I'm okay either way, to be honest with you. I have plenty of faith in Mr. Bonaparte to choose, and I just want to see, I want to make sure that we represent all of our different ethnic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I see this more as a technical committee than for lack of a better word. Sure. Yeah, okay. Sure. Everyone okay with that?
So we would each get one, so we should go ahead and start, if we approve this, we should start looking for our.
One.
But there's supposed to be applicants too. We're taking applications, so if you have someone, you should tell them to put in an application. And that brings up a question I had, now that I think about it, because one place it says applications are due February 26th, and the other says they're due March 19th. I'm assuming March 19th is the more realistic date.
That is correct.
Okay.
Residents of the city of Sanford.
Or have a business or work in Sanford.
Have a business or work in Sanford, okay.
All right, so any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. And that brings us to resolution 2939.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, the staff recommends that the Commission approve resolution number 2939, along with the budget amendment for the use of reserve funds towards repair and improvement for the Jet Triplett Community Center in an amount not to exceed $96,288.
Any discussion on this? Your motion?
Move to approve. Everybody want that, say yes. Second.
All right. So a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. And then finally 2940.
Yes, resolution, Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission, resolution number 2940 is to provide for the lease purchase of police vehicles, and as the staff's recommendations to the Commission approved, the attached resolution and authorize execution of the attached lease with tourists.
Do we have a motion on that?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
We should have made the deputy chief back though.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. City attorney comments.
I have no additional items to bring to this commission.
City clerk's report. City manager's report.
At this point, I have nothing to add to this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, and then citizen participation. I do not have any requests. Does anyone in the audience would like to speak? Okay, seeing no one. We'll bring it to commission reports. I'm gonna go first and last. So for Housing Authority, we need to appoint 2 people, and we are appointing a proposed Laterica Hillary and Alvin Moore as proposed. If I can get a motion and a second on that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Let's go ahead and finish the rest of them. We have a P&Z alternate position. I believe we have someone we wanted to appoint.
Ashley Woodward?
Yes.
Motion and a second from Commissioner Britton.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then, so for museum, we need to look at our applications a little more. Is that correct? Or does somebody have a suggestion?
No, didn't we say James?
Do we only have one spot?
Yes.
One spot on that one.
Make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion.
Move to approve.
No.
James.
I don't know.
I don't know how to say his last name.
Schwarzelli?
Schwarzelli? James.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Okay. All right, so Commissioner Britton.
Okay, I would like to know, who's responsible for the kiosks for the park that's on First Street and Magnolia Square?
The city, in terms of public works, parks and recreation.
Yeah, I was just saying, what department, we have a couple of businesses that said, their name is not on the kiosk, specifically the jailhouse and brick and mortar. And there's a couple, that are no longer there, and it hasn't been updated since it's been installed. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Staff has discussed that because as businesses come and go, that can happen, and we're looking at maybe a different kind of kiosk, but I'll certainly bring it to the staff attention.
Okay.
It used to be handled by the historic preservation list.
Okay, and then I would also like a follow-up at the next meeting regarding the litter control. We talked about that at the last commission meeting about possibly hiring someone to pick up the litter, and then as well as the speed monitors. We discussed, I believe it was the mayor and Mr. Issachar talked about they had done the research on it. So I'd like a follow-up on both of those.
Mr. Issachar, can you bring up the
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I can give you a brief update on both items. For the litter control person, we looked at both hiring somebody in-house or outsourcing those services. And outsourcing is coming out to be quite expensive. So we will be bringing that to the commission for a new position in this budgeting. For the second question was that, I guess the signs, the
speed limit signs?
The speed, yeah, we actually have placed an order for about, I think, 4 signs. So we will be doing that on Park Avenue and another street once we get those in.
And the estimated cost?
I'm sorry, what?
The estimated cost?
Of the signs, each sign is about $3,500.
We looked at various kinds of signs, and that's what we were.
Can I jump in on that? Are we going to do checks like the speeding before and after? So we're going to do some research as to whether they actually work on our streets. And some of the ones I looked at, you can not put the sign up and it just does the speed reading.
So the sign that we ordered, well, first of all, on Park Avenue, let's say if we do the signs, we already have that area where we can do before and after. But the signs itself also records the speeds. So once we have those documented.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And then I want to thank Deputy Chief Romano for meeting with me this week regarding the speed violations and issues that we have in District 1, and they kind of branched off into District 2 and District 3. And I just really appreciate that, Deputy Chief, regarding that. And then I want to know if somebody can meet me out on Grandview sometime this week.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
I appreciate that, sir. And, did I say Mike Jones? Okay, Mike Jones, there had been a lot of complaints about speeding in certain areas, and so before my meeting with Deputy Chief Mike Jones assisted in helping me creating a map of all of the hot spots, even though I know they've already done traffic studies, but it was just easier to have that meeting with him. So I appreciate Mike Jones of our GIS. And Mr. Duncan, I would like to meet with you regarding CDBG. I got a letter from a subrecipient, so if I could get on your schedule sometime this week.
Absolutely, just
That's it for me.
Also, Commissioner, you had indicated about the city retaining somebody to assist businesses with applications, and we're still working on that. We did, as you're familiar, I believe, run into a snafu with purchasing, so we've had to redo that, but we are moving forward with that.
Thank you, sir. That's it. Yes.
Two things. I know I talked to you today about speed bumps, so we'll get that going over in Goldsboro next week. Also, I got a complaint from Washington Mills. I guess they have a problem with meters, so you got the same, okay? You got
with meters?
Well, they're saying with the water, so
that's
they
not
put the meter in. They said they're having problems over there as well with the water bill. So I told them I would say something about it. Listen.
And Commissioner Wiggins has got with staff today. The commission approves some speed bumps in calming in Goldsboro.
Yes.
And we're looking to have them established in the first week of March.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? Commissioner Austin?
Just want a update on where we are with the signage for the Jeff Triplett Community Center.
Again, everybody, Chris will be pulling up one of the blades. It's currently at the end of manufacturing, and I think we expect that within the next week to 10 days. We thought we were going to get it a little sooner, but that's the clear cut. It will be just to the right of the main entrance door. So we'll be able to put that in, and then, of course, when construction happens, we can easily remove that and place it back.
Answer that question. When we finish with remodeling of the building, will his name be on there as well, or just have on the sign? Would it be just that sign, or I'm asking?
We've currently just received direction to have this in line with all of our park signs, which will be detached from the building.
We could come back and once the building is.
I think we need to do that, because the same thing we had on the west side with Doc.
Well,
We had
yeah.
that sign, and then we had Doc's name on
Yeah, but I'm sorry. But I think the current work is not all inclusive. I think there's going to be more work that needs to be done to that building in the next few years, and that's when the lettering might be done.
Okay.
Am I speaking out of turn?
Well, what we've proposed this evening will be all of the siding. So if we decide, or if the body decides to make additional investments in that building and take it out to the east, perhaps adding on another gymnasium or outdoor courts, that would be up for another discussion. But currently, what you approved this evening will take care of the outside at this point. And that's all we have planned currently.
All right.
But I thought we were only fixing, we're not replacing the whole side, are we?
No, I think in most areas they'll be able to go in and replace or fix what we have now and then paint over it. There may be some sheets that we are going to need to replace just due to the sheer condition of it, but we're not totally stripping the exterior.
Yeah, the other thing I have is this, Mr. Bonaparte, if you have just a few minutes right after the meeting, I'd like to sit down and talk to you about the new arrangement downstairs in the lobby. I think the best laid plans of mice and men aren't working out so well. And I've had a few complaints from people coming in and trying to do business and not liking to do their business in the middle of the lobby. So if I've got to, I know this sounds silly, like put it on the record, you idiot, I've got to go home and feed my cats. But before that, if we can talk, you and I, for a minute, I'd appreciate it.
Anything else?
I did have one question for you. Are you doing the airport authority this?
I am. Are you going to?
Yep.
Okay.
But I would like to bring someone with me.
Okay.
I would like to bring Amy King.
You can bring anybody you want to, it's a public meeting.
Yeah, I know, I just.
Whatever happened to the electric box wraps?
They're in process.
Okay, so that is getting done?
Yes.
There was a holdup last year when COVID-19
Okay,
started.
that's what I was thinking, and then-
We froze non-essential, but that has now been released.
Yeah.
All right.
They froze non-essential, and I think, can I elaborate? I think when non-essential got frozen, they sort of almost inadvertently ended up in that, and it was frozen for quite a while. And so that money's been released, and they are moving forward. And by the way, just so you know, so everybody knows, on that same topic, Mr. Mayor, there is going to be a St. Johns River Festival of the Arts the first weekend in May.
Okay. And that is all I have.
You're awesome.